Let's see if we can rescue this machine. It turns, but stiffly. This is a new to me white 1240 Majestic sewing machine. It's untested, except for I'm manually rotating the wheel, and I am getting proper action. It seems to have the normal class 15 bobbin setup. The end panel swings open, and there's the light. Looks like there are these two screws will allow me to get the top off. So let's do that. There's the second one. And these three should get this panel off. Looks like this needs to come off to create enough room to get the panel off. Now let's see with the needle all the way up if it'll come off. Yes, it will. This is a somewhat unusual needle plate. Having it screw on is not too unusual, but the shape is unique and interesting. Not bad. Old yellowed grease. It's not filthy, but it's degraded by sheer age. And although we need lubrication, that's too sticky. It'll make it hard to run. And that's probably why it was stiff to turn. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that out and re-lubricate with fresh lubricant. Here's the underneath part. I just removed the two screws that were in this position. And voila, the motor. These guys are really tough to get out, but they seem to be what's holding the base plate on, and I want to get it off, so I will persevere. Now this area is accessible and can be cleaned. There's some really, really hard grease right there. It's like putty. The screws are out and it's still not budging, but it's loose back here. So I'm thinking maybe this has to come out. Did the trick. There we go. This is the right-hand end of the machine as you face it, and I found it a little tricky to get off, even though it looks like it should just pop off. And it actually does. You just have to exert enough pressure to release this black-tipped post from the clip we were just pointing to. These will be the cams for the pattern stitches. And everything looks to be in outstandingly good condition for its age. But there's more of this hardened grease hither and thither. So I will be using this to dissolve it, scrub it out with a toothbrush, and then re-lubricate. This is a long process. It just takes as long as it takes to do a good job. Here's how I'm getting to this stuff. I've already sprayed. Yuck. I'm picking some out. Then I'm turning the hand wheel so that another spot will be exposed for cleaning. It's not really hard to get to everything. It just takes a few minutes because we're looking manually over and over. Every time I go around, though, there's less of this. Now I can probably, I'm using a combination of a dental pick and a toothbrush. It is washing down into the bottom of the machine, but I have absorbent towels down there to soak it up, so it's not going into the works. This has been a particularly dirty area, caked with gunk. It's going to take going over that one several times. I am cleaning and lubricating everything as I go. I'm only showing you the nastiest spots. This product both cleans and lubricates. It's getting late, so I'm going to call it a night. I'll give everything one more squirt, then cover it with these towels and let it soak till morning. I did locate a manual for this, and on page 45 it shows where to oil. The mechanism moves pretty freely now. I'm satisfied that the area we're looking at is clean enough to proceed. This is the area that would be behind the bobbin from the vantage point of the person sewing. And this is the one that's been the most stubborn about coming clean. So I'll just have to keep softening the grease, picking at it, scrubbing it, and repeating until it is clean. And here we are. I think that is good enough to proceed. Before closing up, I want to make sure there's an internal response to every setting on the stitch selector dial. And the first three are just needle positions, so that nothing's much going to happen with the cams. We see something at the right. After that, the cam followers begin to engage depending on what stitch we select. The plate-looking things that are marked with the red pointer are actually cam followers. Each position determines which cam or multiple of cams will be followed when the shaft rotates to make the stitches, and the stitches will follow the instruction of the cams. I have to confess, I understand how this works, but I could not express it properly. I had to ask my husband, a lifelong mechanic, for the words. Time to put the bobbin area back together. The hook is in. This part should slide on and clip into place to close the front of the case. But here I ran into a little surprise. It did not want to fit in neatly and have the little arms close over it. Turns out it's because of a somewhat unusual feature on this machine, where I'm fiddling with the little arrows. That makes the feed dog go up and down. And it must be gotten out of the way in order to correctly seat the case cover. Here's how to get there. Now there's plenty of room to move those little arms, put the cover on, and restore them to their normal position, which is a little bit unusual looking. They straddle the edge, and part of the black is to the outside. There is a notch in there. They fit positively and properly, but it's not quite the same way some other machines fit. And here's how we'll raise and lower the feed dogs. The lower position of the part with the arrows that my thumb is on actually places the feed dogs into the upper position, the one we normally sew with, and we lower it in order to darn. Here's a close look at what's going on when we raise and lower. And by the way, with lowered feed dogs, you can also do machine embroidery. With the machine still apart, I threaded it and made a few stitches with hand turning the wheel. But there still remains an issue. At full zigzag width, the needle swings too far to the right, so it hits. Here's how I solved the problem on this machine. I'm pointing to a screw that is on the shaft that holds the needle. I loosened that screw and then nudged the shaft that holds the needle slightly to the left and tightened the screw back up. Now, with the zigzag stitch set at its maximum width, everything works correctly. It does not go too far over and tap either the foot or the needle plate. This is actually the zig, 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 zag, zag, zag stitch being shown. Something was stuck in this area so that I was able to loosen the center wheel as if to wind a bobbin, but that did not disengage the needle. It was still driving the needle. Squirting lubricant into the shaft that holds them both and working the wheel to and fro a few times loosened it up so that now if I tighten the wheel, the needle goes, and if I release the interior wheel, I can wind a bobbin by itself. You can see that with the interior wheel loosened up, when I turn the wheel, it's not driving the mechanism. When I tighten it, it is. The top slides back into place most easily left in first. That half circular cutout goes around the foot pressure adjustment area. The big question is, does it sew? Positions 1, 2, and 3 seem to all be straightened zigzag stitch, but 1 is with the needle homing on the left, 2 on the center, and 3 on the right. And they all are stitching, yay. You can watch the needle change positions as I rotate the dial. Trying out some other stitches. Number 7, length 2, maximum width. This is the multiple zigzag. And if you turn it to straight stitch, it's a triple straight stitch. It's not something I use a lot, but it's cool to see the machine doing it. This is the fanciest of the stitches this machine will do. I believe that it is often referred to as smocking stitch. I've gone through the entire selection of available stitches, and every single one of them works well. One last thing is to check forward and reverse. Of course, we've been sewing forward, but here we are reversing with no problem at all. I have lots of other videos on knitting and sewing and machine maintenance for both kinds of machines. I hope you'll enjoy them all. They're indexed for easy access on theanswerlady.com.